Welcome on to Daggerheart Characters. My name is Steve, and we are going to be looking at the Artificer class, which I used my Tinker domain, a domain that I created, the first domain that I have created, along with the Codex domain to make the Artificer. I forgot to point out in that video, guys, can we get a little appreciation? Look at my domain banners for the Tinker domain. Should have put up the Codex domain in here as well on one side, but I just got finished recording the video for the Tinker domain creation. So let's just get right on into looking at the Artificer. We're going to kind of fly through this because then I created a character for each subclass that I'd also like to put in this video, and I don't want this video to be super long. So let's get into this. We're starting evasion is going to be 10, starting hit points is going to be 6. The class items are a set of, I think it's pronounced lupes or small set of hand tools. I didn't actually know what these are called. This is essentially a version of, like, if you think of what jewelers would use on their glasses, like those magnifying glasses. So it's like a set of magnifying lenses is what that is, or a small set of hand tools. Because, hey, you are a bit of a tinkerer here, being the Artificer, of course. That's to bring us on to the Artificer's Hope feature. We got Biomechanics 101. You're a smart lad. You had to take classes, right? And you definitely took Biomechanics 101 here. So spend 2 hope to temporarily weaken a target within close range, giving them a -1 penalty to their difficulty. So it's only a spend 2 hope, so that's really nice. Of course, you have to be within close range of them, and it's just a -1 penalty to their difficulty. Editor's note for clarity: although you may stack this feature on one target, the GM may use just one fear to clear the weakened condition, just like you can with any temporary condition, but just pointing that out, regardless of how big the debuff to their difficulty is. So, yeah, actually, sorry, I'm pointing out that the weakened condition, it's not like weakened 1, weakened 2, weakened 3, and each time, at any point, if you've used 6 hope in order to put a -3 penalty difficulty onto a creature, the GM may say, okay, well, now I've had enough of this. I'm going to spend a fear to get rid of the weakened condition, and all 3 of those would disappear. At least that's the most fair, I think. Let me know if it shouldn't be like that. In your opinion, I would be definitely open to that, but because this only costs 2 hope to do it as well, you know, it felt right to me to add that little fact on there. All right, that brings us to the class feature here for emergency repairs. Once per rest, make a finesse roll of 12 to repair the armor of a creature within melee range. You can work on your own armor as well. On a success, you get to clear 2 armor slots on the target. On a failure, you get to clear 1 armor slot on the target, and on a critical success, you get to clear 3 armor slots on the target. For the subclasses, we have either the Mech or the Alchemist, and I have already created, and I think they're both out there, a Mech class and an Alchemist class. And so I did pull from those a little bit in helping to create these subclasses as well. Once again, to go check out these Tinker domain cards. I hopefully will remember to put in the description a link to the Tinker domain, since that's not widely available out there. Save you some time of having to go find the video. If you just want to read the write-up that I have on a Google Doc, that once again that link would bring you to, combined with the Codex domain there. So for the Mech, play the Mech to focus on your physical prowess through unique upgrades to your weaponry armor, as well as gaining access to fun gadgetry. And I didn't do a write-up yet for the Artificer. Those things take some time. I just created this the other day. I have a little bit of free time to do a couple of recordings, so I just wanted to take advantage of my free time. And so I don't quite have a write-up yet. Obviously, that's just flavor. Not the most important thing, but we do have all of the features prepared to go. So the spellcast rate for the Mech is going to be finesse, and then for the Alchemist it will end up being knowledge. For your foundation features that you get for the Mech, you get Boots of Swift Action. Also definitely pulled from like D&D for ideas throughout the Tinker domain and this domain too. So you have throughout this class, you have advantage on agility rolls made to move within far range and on rolls made due to rough terrain. So nice flat advantage there because of your shoes. And then you got Goggles of the Night. The GM should not raise the difficulty of or impose disadvantage on action rolls that you make in darkness. That is how the GM is supposed to treat darkness. They're supposed to raise the difficulty of something or impose disadvantage in situations in dark lights, darkness. Darkness is the condition in the game. And I would imagine there are some GMs that maybe aren't thinking of it literally like, oh, I'm increasing the difficulty, even though they might make something more difficult. And so this is very specifically worded in order to try to push the fact that if your GM, says, hey, this is a 14 difficulty, and then you're like, well, I have Goggles of the Night, and they're like, I don't care, it's still 14 for you too, you can point to the rules of the fact that it's supposed to be either more difficult for them or less difficult for you compared to the rest of your party. So that's why this is worded as such. That's going to bring us on to the specialization features. We've got Reinforce Bracers. Once per rest, when you mark an armor slot to reduce incoming damage, you can spend a hope to mark an additional armor slot. And Harpoon. You can launch a harpoon at a location within far range, make a finesse roll of 13 on a success, mark a stress to pull yourself to a position within melee range of your target location. So just a lot of fun gadgetry stuff to help make your life easier for the most part here, and reinforced bracers to just give yourself that extra, kind of pretty much taken from the bone domain, I believe, in terms of how this kind of operates. Maybe a little bit different cost on that one, though. And then we've got our mastery feature, Emergency Shield. When you have 3 or fewer hit points unmarked, place a D8 on this card, 8 side up. Each time you take physical damage, reduce the damage by the amount on the die and tick the die down by 2. After reduce incoming physical damage by 2, remove the die. So it goes 8, 6, 4, 2, no more reduction from this die. It only works on physical damage, which it does work nice cohesively with the Tinker domain, which gives you a lot of things that work against magic damage, and then one sensor that could stack with this really nicely to really help to limit any kind of physical damage coming in towards you. And then remove any dice on this card once your unmarked hit points surpasses 6, and you cannot have more than 2 of these dice on this card. So you could, fall down to 2 hit points. Somebody could bring you back up immediately to 4 hit points, and then you get hit again down to 2 hit points, whatever, and then on that first one, that die is marked down to a 6, but now you have a die, an 8 and a 6 die out, really helping to reduce damage, but no more than that. And if you were to be healed all the way up to more than 6 hit points, then the die are just removed. Your emergency shield goes down, basically, because you are no longer at threat of taking some sort of major blow and just being downed before you can react. So that's why it's like an emergency shield, right? So that is it for the Mech domain. Let's look at the Alchemist. Play the Alchemist to use chemicals and your arcane knowledge to assist yourself. You're going to use knowledge for your spellcast trait. There we go, knowledge. And your foundation feature is going to be augmented weaponry. You've either added a toxin to a physical weapon or found a way to enhance a magical weapon. Use your imagination exactly how you've augmented your weaponry. After a long rest, place a number of tokens on this card equal to your spellcast trait, a minimum of 1. When you successfully hit a creature with your weapon, you can spend a token and roll a die based on your level, adding the result to your damage roll. So at first level, you get to add d4s to your damage roll. D6 is at 5th level, 8th level, D8. Brings us on to the specialization feature. This is pulled from my Alchemist class. I think one of the subclasses that I created, mutagenics. You've created a rare and powerful potion which permanently increases a part of your life force, but it comes at a cost. Take a -1 penalty to a trait of your choice. Gain a +1 bonus to your hit points or stress. And then at 8th level, or later if you don't specialize in Alchemist prior to 8th level, so maybe if you were to take your specialization at 9th level, then you would just take 2 -1 penalties to traits of your choice, and you would gain 2 +1 bonuses to your hit points and stress. Or if you took this at like 5th level, you'd do the -1 +1 bonus, -1 +1 bonus at 8th level as well. No choice. Once you specialize in this, once you hit 8th level, you're gonna you mutagen you mutate more. You mutate more. I'm trying to add more syllables onto mutate for some reason. And this next one also is taken from that build, the Alchemist that I made, and there's a chance that this is an OP, so let me know, but it is only a once per session card, so it is meant to be strong. The one thing that I think maybe we just take this penalty and move it to a -1 to their difficulty instead of -2, if you think this is only maybe slightly overpowered. But a faint yellow cloud covers the battlefield. Luckily, you've immunized yourself and your allies already. Once per session, make a spellcast roll against every adversary within far range. Each target that you succeed against is temporarily poisoned. Gain 1 hope for each poisoned target. That's the other thing that we could remove, the gaining 1 hope for each poisoned target. Maybe that is something that puts this over the edge. Maybe we shouldn't gain a hope for them. And then place a poison die on them. Three-sided, the 3 side is going to be facing up from this poison die. Notice I didn't call it a D4 or anything because I don't care what die it is. You only need the 3, the 2, and the 1 sides. So each time a poisoned creature takes an action, they are affected per the table below. When the 3 side is facing up, face the 2 side up, and they mark a stress every time that they take an action. Remember, so when they take an action and the 2 side is facing up, face the die 1 side up and they take a penalty of -2 to their difficulty. And when the 1 side is facing up, face the 3 side up and they mark a hit point, thus returning the cycle back up to when the 3 side is facing up. To remove the poison condition on an adversary, the GM must mark a fear. Clear the poison die. Any effects imposed remain until the end of the scene. So it is a poison, so they don't just gain back all of a sudden from these penalties that they have suffered. Non-living and non-breathing creatures are immune to this effect. They cannot be poisoned. So there is also a little bit of a limitation on who this can be used upon and its effectiveness against them. So there is the Artificer. Let's look at some subclass guys that I made with the Artificer. Alright, so now on the screen we are looking at the Alchemist is the first one that we were looking at. This is going to be all the way up to 10th level, so I'm not going through all of the specifics of the build to where we got on the build or each step of the way. But I made an Alchemist Artificer, since this is the one that's since this is the one that's most fresh in your mind in terms of those subclass abilities and class abilities. Once again, the class ability, biomechanics, spend 2 to temporarily weaken a target, -1 penalty to their difficulty, and emergency repair, chance to once per rest to clear 2 armor slots, 1 armor slot, or maybe even 3 armor slots on yourself or an ally. Along with the mutagenics, which you can see taking effect here. So the mutagenics, I took a -2 to my presence twice, and I added a hit point and a stress, I believe, with each time that I had to do the mutagenics. Then we get, of course, that noxious gas as a big, powerful ability, and earlier we also got some augmentation to our weaponry to give ourselves a little bit of a bonus to our damage with our weapons. So we went all in on our spellcast trait of knowledge and also followed that up with a good amount of finesse because, we're a tinkerer, and a little bit of strength because we do have some furbolg in us. We are a human furbolg. So like I said, stress is definitely something that is going to be utilized with this combination of the domains, as well as this class in general. It's going to be, a resource that we want to have available. And depending on, it might be highly necessary to have a lot of it available. So I ended up going with high stamina and unshakable. So high stamina gave us an extra stress slot right out of the gate, and unshakable means that every time that you mark a stress, you can roll a d6 in order to potentially not mark it if you land on a 6. And so that effectively gives us another 1.5, so 1 or 2 stresses here to work with based off of our baseline amount of stress, of course, So that is something to keep in mind, that we almost have an additional stress guaranteed, plus maybe one more. So that covers those things. We got start off with 10 evasion, so we invested in our evasion 3 times. We have our armor is up to 6. So if you don't know, what I do when I'm creating characters, in order to make sure I don't overtune them, is I choose. Of course, you get your baseline two weapons at first level and armor, but I choose 1 4th tier, 1 3rd tier, and 1 2nd tier item while I'm creating them. Once again, just to make sure that I'm not over tiering them, but I do get to pick the item, so that's nice. So with this build, I went with the Blade Fair armor. While we're talking about the armor there, you can see the base thresholds of 16 and 39, plus I got a bonus to my damage thresholds along the way from taking that enhancement card, domain card, which kind of works like the vitality domain card for the blade domain by giving us a couple of permanent bonuses. There it is, enhancement right there. And the Blade Fair is going to be nice because it gives us these higher thresholds, a nice high amount of armor slots which we want to use. But we can only use those armor slots to reduce physical damage, not against magic damage. But if you remember, or if you saw, in the Tinker domain, there are several ways that things that we have that can reduce very specifically magic damage. And there are some, there's obviously some codex cards that we have where we can actually, as well as Tinker cards where we can do like counter spells of sorts as well. So there are a lot of ways that we can help to increase our combat effectiveness against magic damage while getting the benefit of this increased kind of armor from this armor that doesn't really help us against magic. So I thought that would be a nice kind of interesting combination to build. So that was very purposeful from kind of the offset of this. I wanted to see how that would combine with each other. And then for our weapon, I grabbed the Fusion Gloves, two-handed weapon, knowledge, very far range, D6 plus 22. So this is getting a bonus from our level, so a plus 10 bonus. This is plus 9 normally. That brings us to plus 19. And then the other enhancement that I took was to my damage, so a plus 3 bonus to the damage. It was a plus 2 bonus to each of these thresholds, by the way. So the plus 3 bonus to our damage plus the 10 plus gain a bonus to damage roll equal to your level is part of the Fusion Gloves feature. So we added that plus 13, and we did invest in our proficiencies twice along the way. So we are trying to hit hard, and that will help with our weapon charge to help proc that more, which gives us a plus 1 bonus to our proficiency whenever we are able to use our weapon charge, which is, of course, in the video for the Tinker domain. But these are the domain cards that I took. Of course, I specialized and mastered in this subclass. So I took the Book of Typhar, the Book of Iliad, and then at level 2, I would have also taken the Book of Ava. So I would have just gotten this real base level of like all of the fun magic stuff out of those books. Real quick and early, would have had a wide variety of options for some time too, really. But at second level, then I got the Magic Shield, which kind of does what you think it does. It helps protect me against magic damage in a special way. And then Weapon Charge, which will give us a plus 1 bonus to our proficiency when we get the weapon charged, which only happens so often. Then we got Potion Craft. So Potion Craft is not going to count against our domain card selection. It's not going to count against our loadout or anything like that. So at 4th level, I changed that book out then to the Book of Exoda, because if I'm a Tinker, an Artificer, to me personally, I want a construct, little buddy, and I believe the Book of Exoda also gives us some help protection against magic, against magical abilities. It's like a counter spell as the other spell that you get along with the Book of Exoda. So that's really nice, along with our base level spells, and then the Magic Shield and the Weapon Charge. And those are going to be our 5 domain cards that we have, because Potion Craft's not counting against that. And for Potion Craft, we can use our short rest downtime move on creating health or stamina potions instead, is essentially how that works out. So that's nice to have that kind of option, because we're not having to spend any stress yet to get anything out, even though we did invest in an extra domain card at 4th level. The extra one that we invested in doesn't matter. And all along the way, we also had that bonus additional magic at our fingerprints. So at 5th level, I took teleport and enhancement, which we've seen the options that I chose for enhancement, but that's also not going to be a domain card that we need to pull in and out. So we only have, +1 bonus extra card, even though we were taking 2 bonus domain cards, and we're at 6th level around this time. 6th level cards that I ended up taking were Protection Sensor and Banish. Banish is a 0-cost stress, so that's not going to cost extra stress to take out. So you can see we didn't invest the most in our stress. Once again, we kind of have an extra one here, and our hit points are sitting a little bit better than the other class. This is meant to be, we are built that we can be up front and be fighting. We're not going to have to sit from far range away, but in some instances maybe we will, of course, sit further away from the fight. And then EMP field is going to be another way that we're going to protect ourselves very specifically from magic damage. In fact, any kind of weapon attack or spell that does magic damage that targets us specifically is going to be done at disadvantage until that specific creature were to, or adversary were to hit us. From that point on in the fight, then they're no longer going at disadvantage. So that's going to be another nice little bonus I can pull out for highly magical fights where this armor, my armor slots, aren't doing anything for me to help keep me more alive in those types of fights, along with our magic shield, which works as a beefed up but very limited amount of armor slots, essentially. It's just like you get to mark to reduce damage by 2 thresholds instead of just 1 twice, and you don't have to spend an armor slot to use it per long rest, I believe, for Magic Shield. And then we've got the Book of Viola, which is going to give us Memory Delve and Shared Clarity. So once per long rest, spend a hope to choose 2 willing creatures. When one of them would mark a stress, they can choose between the 2 of them who marks it. This spell lasts until their next rest. Now, if you think about this, and you think about your ability to, you can roll a d6 every time that you mark a stress. This could help an ally, this could help you guys make through, you try to wipe through your stress first, basically, and get the most out of your stress before you tap into their stress, would be, I think, the way to go about it. And so that's why I got it, kind of tap into that kind of synergy. And then we got Knowledge is Power, which is a tinker, which gives you a certain amount of D8, which you can use to help on some sorts of rolls that work with your allies. You can also use them to clear your stress, or you can use them on an action roll. So it's kind of like a bardic die that does a few different things than bardic die, and you can only use it on yourself and not others, because knowledge, you can't really... works a little. Knowledge doesn't work like music or word, right? Although you can impart it on others, not this knowledge die. And then at 10th level, craft consumable is the other item that we grabbed here, and that's also not going to count against our loadout or anything like that. Just after a long rest, we get to craft a consumable from the consumables table. Roll on it. So there you go. That is the Alchemist. Let's go on to the Mech. Oh, by the way, Loreborn human Furbolg. So we also are going to use our knowledge along with Loreborn there. And now we have our Mech, and I wanted to go a little bit more roguish with this guy. So he is going to be, it is an Underborn Clank/Construct, and you might say to yourself, Construct? I don't remember that being a thing. Construct is an ancestry that I created, which has Artificial Being. Is that the one that we took? Yes, and Mindless. So for constructs, abilities, or features, you are immune to conditions imposed by magical means. That is Artificial Being. That is the one that I took. So we're immune to conditions imposed by magical means. So that's nice. And then we also took, and then the other feature for the construct is Mindless. You cannot be tracked and are immune to features that deal in the mind. So construct, kind of a mindless being, right? So, Clank and construct, I guess we're just a high-tech clank or a low-tech construct. I don't know. But we are part clank, part construct. The other thing, we're going to get efficient from the clank, which allows us to use like a long time move instead of a short rest move, or an additional short rest move during downtimes. I think that's what it is, an additional short rest move during downtimes. And so there's some real nice synergy there with things like powdercraft, etc. So this is, I talked about this in the Tinker video. Also kind of odd. I have a machine that is addicted to a drug, so I think we would pretend that snap powder is not a powder, but maybe some sort of megabytes that I don't know, chew on, you know. I have to work things out in terms of the flavor for this character, but those are the features that I get from being a clank construct, and we are Underborn, which is going to work with our rogueness. And part of the reason that I invested a little bit to get our knowledge back a little bit higher here, because part of Underborn is like analyzing things in dark you get advantage on or something like that. So just a little synergy there. Our evasion, we just got up to 12. Didn't end up investing in that all the way. 7 armor slots here. Agility 1, finesse 5, instinct 4, knowledge 2. So, yeah, moved up the instinct. We are Underborn. I guess it's just a natural ability of ours to be able to navigate and stuff. But this is really more for the perceptive and the sensory type of thing, more than the navigation for the bonus to the instinct for this character. Did end up investing in proficiency once, although, I was kind of making a character here that's fairly able to be on the front lines and everything, and then I made the Alchemist, and I went all in on that. So I didn't end up making a more defensive character that's going to be staying away from the fight out of the two of them, which I would have liked to showcase a couple of other things, like concussive armor would be really nice for that. Is one of the Tinker domain cards that I didn't take for either of these builds. But we got a Blessed Anlace for the weapon, one-handed instinct melee. Oh, that's part of the reason also that we got the instinct up, is I wanted to be dealing a little bit more damage than the knowledge options out there, because for the Gunslinger, which is one of the Tinker domain features, which is you can build a primary or a secondary weapon, primary being a two-handed, dealing more damage. In this case, I went with just building this revolver, and it, just like Bare Bones does for the Valor domain, every time that you move up a tier in the game, it improves a little bit. So we have our revolver that we will use, and we can use that within close range, d6 plus 9 damage, roll 1d8 after attacking on a 1, mark a stress to reload the weapon. And our Blessed Anlace during downtime is going to let us clear 1 hit point, and does just, a little bit more higher potential output on the damage with that as well when we're within melee range, but a little less likely to be hitting because it's using our instinct instead of our finesse. These are our damage thresholds. There are no boosts there. It shows the Ember Woman armor when attacked within melee. Attacker marks a stress. No real significance to making that decision. Just felt like a good one to have for this character. Just a little bit trying to make people maybe not want to attack us or regret attacking us and think about doing it again. And then we have just invested probably just once into our hit points, unless I forgot to give myself my base 6 and I invested twice in them. But mostly we invested heavily in the stress. Once again, we're going to supplement that with our snap powder from Powdercraft, which allows us to use one of our additional downtime maneuver in order to create 1d4 snap powders. And we are addicted, and that's going to allow us to mark a stress, gain a hit point. Then we have, of course, our hope feature, spend 2 hope to temporarily reduce difficulty. And we have a bunch of, we're maneuverable. We've got our Boots of Swift Action, giving us advantage on agility rolls made to move within far range, and on rolls made due to rough terrain. Our Goggles of Night, making us even more effective in darkness. Going to go right along with our Underborn. Reinforced Bracers. our harpoon, giving us more ability to get to places that might be hard to reach, or just quickly move somewhere. But we already have our Boots of Swift action, so it's really trying to get us to places that are a little bit harder to reach sometimes. And our Reinforced Bracers giving us the ability to mark a couple of armor slots to reduce more damage, to help us keep these hit points up a little bit higher, as well as our emergency shield, which will also help keep us a little bit more well defensed. So yeah, this player is going to be fighting, kind of close to the battle lines, a mid-line fighter, ultimately. So we got that gunslinger. Then we've got toolkit, which is going to help with our rogueness, which allows us to cut into walls, essentially, create holes, get to things, get to places that might be otherwise harder to reach more sneakily, hopefully. And then the Book of Sigil, one of the knowledge books, Powdercraft, explain that. We get a Ring of Blank, which is going to give us like a counterspell type of ability, or a flight, or a chance to a luck trait. So that's how the ring works, and you can switch between them at the cost of a couple stress. The Book of Grin give us more, some more of our spellcraft. And then I think we went quite heavy into the Tinker domain outside of those two books that we grabbed. We got enhancement, so we gained a +1 bonus to our attack rolls. So that's going to help. That's going to offset mathematically, game-wise, this fact that we're using this instinct weapon. We're going to get the +5 bonus to our attacks with that, and then a +6 bonus to our revolver first. So we're going to be nice and precise with those attacks, and a +1 bonus to our armor slot. So that's how this gets up to 7, despite the Emberwoven armor space armor slots being 6. And then Sigil of Retribution would give us a way to beef up our damage and do more, deal more damage. Once again, going back, I think I would make a couple of changes to this character. So a redo might be to take Concussive Armor early on here instead of something else, and then to get Tinker Touched instead of grabbing the Sigil of Retribution at 7th level. As you can see, this would be a 7th level thing, and Concussive Armor would just be at the cost of one of these, up top. So probably one of the books, the Book of Sigil or the Book of Grin. We would instead take Concussive Armor. And then we also could, at that point, maybe we wouldn't want to spend and invest in our proficiency. We could have invested in our stress yet again, or, any number of things, of course, when you level up. That would have given us 2 level up abilities if we did that, if we were less focused on getting our hits out. But at this point, we do have some boost, damage here from the Sigil of Retribution, which is a Codex domain card. But the synergy with the Concussive Armor, our increased amount of armor slots, and the Tinker Touch would give us another +1 to our finesse, and a beef up to our evasion too, like once per rest, would work really nicely in synergizing with this build that we made. Then I grabbed Quick Rewind, which is going to be something that we can just pull out. This is a Tinker domain card. You can pull out for free out of our loadout at any point because it has a 0 cost to pull out, and it will allow us to re-roll at the cost of a hope, to re-roll an attack roll that we missed, but at a penalty of -2. But when you think about the fact that we have invested in our ability to hit more accurately, that penalty hopefully will, just the chance to re-roll will be more important than the damage that penalty does when we're trying to hit somebody and make sure that we hit them. EMP field I added to this one, and we talked about that for the other class. Then for one of the 9th level cards, I've got the Helm of Awareness here, which while active would give us a +2 bonus to our evasion, which I do not have calculated in this evasion score, as well as giving us advantage on reaction rolls that we make. And then I chose two cards at 10th level, went back, chose Duplicate Item, which does not count against our vault or loadout cards. It's just an extra long rest downtime maneuver to create an item. We can have up to 2 items that we create from the items list between a certain range of numbers there, as well as grabbing Drone Strike just to have one big damage dealing feature. Drone Strike, one of those things where you spend as many stress as you want to then deal some sort of equal amount of damage amongst a certain amount of creatures within far range, is the quick description of Drone Strike. Once again, you can check out the videos on the Tinker domain to check out those Tinker domain cards, or link in the description to those Tinker Domain cards that I created. So thank you very, very much for tuning on in. I hope you liked these builds. I hope you liked the idea of the Tinker and Codex Domain Artificer here. And most of all, I hope you check out that Tinker Domain. I think it's pretty sweet. Peace out.